morning, Morai Rabotai. We are starting Be'ezra Hashem, Masechet Chagigah, which is really the last of the Masechtot of Seder Moed. We're jumping from the last Bavli, the only Bavli Masechta really in Zeraim, the last one in Seder Moed, Masechet Chagigah. A very important Masechta that deals with Sharosh Regalim. The limud of Amud Yomi for Chodesh Adar has been dedicated by Sha'ab and Sherzah Rabbi, health, happiness, and prosperity of their family. Also anonymously for the Yeshuot of whoever needs Yeshuah. And in honor of all of the learners of Amud Yomi as we start this Masechet. Now there are 3 times in Chumash that we are commanded on the mitzvah of Aliyah Regel. 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times the Torah says, Shalosh ba'amim b'shana, Yera'eh kol zechurcha el penei Adon Hashem, Shalosh regalim tachog li b'shana, Shalosh pa'amim b'shana Yera'eh kol zechurcha et penei Adon Hashem Elokei Yisrael. And really, Rashi writes in Parashat Ki Tisa this concept that whenever you have a mitzvah that's repeated, it shows you the importance of the mitzvah. Sometimes you have different aspects of the mitzvah, and here in this case, Rashi says it shows you how important it is. Rambam writes in the beginning of Hilchot Chagigah that there are 3/4 mitzvot that you have when you speak about the coming up to Yerushalayim for what we call Shalosh Regalim. It's a mitzvah what we call mitzvah of Re'iyah. Going up to Yerushalayim, which would be Shalosh Regalim, as we will see in the Gemara, they would walk up with the regel, with their foot, to Yerushalayim, to Har HaBayit. That's the first mitzvah, but it's not just physically going up there, says the Rambam. But once you come there, lo yera'u panai rekam, says the pasuk. Do not come empty-handed. You don't go to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu and go empty-handed. Part and parcel of the mitzvah of Re'iyah is that you bring a korban, which we call korban hare'iyah, the korban of coming up and seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the place of Machaneh Shechina, which is a korban olah. You don't take anything of it. It's a korban that is fully burnt, aside from the skin. It's korban olah, olat hare'iyah. We're going to speak more about that. So that package of walking up to Yerushalayim, to the Makom HaMikdash is one. And then you have a korban that goes along with that. Korban hare'iyah. That's one out of 3. The second mitzvah is Shalmei Chagigah. Chagigah is the celebration of what we are doing when we have Aliyah LaRegel, and you bring Korban Shlamim of Chagigah as part of that celebration in the first day of the Chag. We're going to speak about first day, after first, what do you do if you didn't bring it in first day, and so on. But the Rambam writes the mitzvah is, but by Korban Re'iyah or Lat Re'iyah, also the first day is the mitzvah. And the third and final one is, all of this the Gemara is going to learn in the next 8 blot, in the next 9 dapim, from different psukim. We're just giving a bird's eye view of what we're going to be discussing. The third and final one is, of course, v'samachta b'chagecha v'ayita ach sameach, and the Gemara says, en simcha ela bebasar v'yayin, that the simcha is not complete without basar v'yayin, so therefore you have to bring another korban shlamim. We call it shalmei simcha. Shalmei simcha is yishach, and the basar, the flesh of it, is going to be eaten by the baalim in Yerushalayim as part of the simchat hachag. Now, Rabbi actually discusses in a Tshuva in Chelek Aleph, in the first volume of Yechavedat, whether or not nowadays we have any sort of mitzvah for going to Regel 3 times a year. He brings the Rav Sadia Gaon, other Gaonim, they would go, and in Chag HaSukkot, they would go and do even the hakafot around the destroyed part of the Beit HaMikdash and so on. So he wants to say, based on Midrashim, that the Shekhinah never left and never will leave the area of the Mikdash, the Kotel HaMaravi, and so on and so forth. But technically speaking, there's no mitzvah of Re'iyah. There's no mitzvah of going up to Yerushalayim. And with that goes the Korban HaRe'iyah, of course, and with that goes the mitzvah of Shalmei Chagigah. But how about the mitzvah of Simchat HaRegel? V'samachta b'chagecha v'ayita achsav. Do you have a mitzvah of that? That becomes actually interesting. The machloket Tosafot and Rambam. Rambam holds that nowadays you do have the mitzvah deoraita of v'samachta b'chagecha. Pesach is around the corner, so you have a mitzvah of v'samachta b'chagecha. The Gemara mentions how do you do the mitzvah of simcha? For men, it's going to be basar v'yayin. V'nashim b'mem mesamechan. How do you make the nashim happy? You buy them jewelry, you take them to the, so someone to say nowadays, for sure, for men it doesn't apply, but for women always applies midoraita. So that's a different story. So that's the machloket, the Tosafot in Masechet Moed Katan Daf Yudalet. They say even the mitzvah of simcha nowadays is not mina Torah, because you don't have the korban shlamim of shalmei simcha. The korbanot are not there. It's the mitzvah of simcha by eating korbanot of shalmei simcha. Therefore, you don't have it nowadays. It's not a mitzvah deoraita. Surprisingly, Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, does not bring the obligation of having basar on Yom Tov, even though that everyone is very specific that on Yom Tov you're going to have the fancy meat and so on and so forth. It's not even brought in Shulchan Aruch. The chiyuv of having wine is brought. That every Suda you're going to have a revi'it of wine, but the chiyuv of basar, after all, is not mentioned in Shulchan Aruch. That's machloket rishonim, whether or not the reference is to the basar that they had from korbanot in the time of Beit HaMikdash, and hence nowadays you don't have that. That's Tosafot. And Rambam that holds even nowadays you have the mitzvah of Simchat HaChag. So that's the basic idea. Our Mishnah is going to be dealing with the fascinating subject of Aliyah LaRegel, going up to Beit HaMikdash and everything that comes with that. One more interesting point is, what's the reason of going up to Regalim? What's the reason? And the two major things that you see in the Rishonim, one is as a means of thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hakarat Tov, because all of the regalim that we have are associated with agricultural system. If you pay attention, every one of the Yamim Tovim has a name which is associated with agricultural system. Chag HaPesach is called Chag HaAviv, right? Chag HaShavuot is called Chag HaKatzir, and Chag HaSukkot is called Chag HaAsif. Those are the moments in time, the milestones that you have in your parnasah, in your business, and every one of them you come to Yisrael and say, Hashem, I recognize hereby that you are the one that is providing for me, and that is really why we go there. But aside from that, I believe you see that one of the points is that for working people to go and draw chizuk once in every few months to see the Beit HaMikdash, to see the Kohanim, to see the people whose lives are dedicated to learning, that is something that's part and parcel of a refresher of emunah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want them to come back inspired. And again, when you historically, not time of it for now, but historically you see that those people who lived far away and they didn't have the mitzvah of Aliyah LaRegel in the same way, in Ever HaYarden and so on and so forth, those people, their kids, did not end up becoming the same way. The future was was written in a different way. It's an important thing, the mitzvah of Re'iyah. So with that, we start the Mishnah. Hakol chayavin b're'iyah. Everybody is obligated in the mitzvah of Re'iyah, as we explained already. Mitzvah of Re'iyah means that you are going up and you're bringing Korban Olah. Now, the Tosafot and Rashi differ a little bit. You see, it's a short Rashi over here. Chayavim bere'iyah, Rashi understands b'mitzvat re'iyat kol zechurcha sheserichim lehitraot be'azara baregel. It's a mitzvah of literally, physically going up to Azara. And the reason Rashi writes Ba'azara, we hinted this before, is because going to Har HaBayit is not enough. Har HaBayit is what we call Machane Leviyah. In the structure of the Beit HaMikdash, there was the Azara, and of course the Kodesh Kodashim, which is Machane Shechina. Then is Machane Leviyah, and then there's Machane Yisrael, the epicenter of which is going to be the Aron and the Luchot and the Makom HaMikdash. But the Har HaBayit is not part of Machane Shechina, so hence you have to go up to the Azara. If you go to Har HaBayit and you don't go to Azara, you haven't done the mitzvah. Rambam actually writes, not only if you don't do Riyah, not only you have not fulfilled the mitzvah aseh of going up, but you are in transgression of a lot aseh, of a don't do. If you says you don't get lashes for it because it's a lav she'en bo ma'aseh, it's a lav that doesn't involve any action, but nevertheless, there's a lav, it's a lot aseh associated with it as well. So that's a short Rashi. Tosfot in short, the long Tosafot that you see over here, the first one discusses that this is really, he brings the Yerushalmi as well, that this is mainly focused on the bringing of the Korban Olah that we mentioned, Olah Tareiyah. Now, what the differences are subtle. We'll do what we do and we go on. So that is Hakol Chayavin B'Re'iyah. Everybody has to go up to Beit HaMikdash, to Makom HaZarah 3 times a year, aside from 12 categories of people. Now, these 12 are not lav davka. The Gemara, for instance, in Psachim, in the beginning of Masechet Psachim, the Gemara has another exception that even a person that doesn't own land does not go. And there are other exceptions that the Gemara is going to enumerate as well, but these are the main 12 exceptions. Who are the exceptions? Chutz, aside from cheresh, shoteh, vekatan. Cheresh, we generally understand, even though the cheresh could mean a person that is not both mute and ilen vecheresh, is not mute and deaf, is only deaf. But here, every time the Chazal mention cheresh, shoteh, vekatan together, those are people who are individuals of defected intellect, and cheresh is only a person of that stature when he can't hear and can't talk. Cheresh, that is mute, and also he is deaf. He can't hear and he can't talk. Now, if he could talk but can't hear, we'll see later on that he may also be patur for a different reason. But here we're talking about a case that the person can't hear and can't talk. So that's cheresh, shoteh, crazy person. Bekatan, a minor, we're going to speak about katan at length now. The tumtum v'anderginos, and tumtum and anderginos are people whose gender is not clear. We're not talking about what goes on in the world right now. We're talking about physically, they're not clear. Tumtum is a person that is atum vesatum, is covered. The genitalia is not clearly out, so you can't tell if it's a man or a woman. And androgynous is androgynous, someone that has a mixture of both identifying genitalia for female and male, so hence you don't know which one it is. So that person also is patur. V'nashim, women are patur. Avadim, the slaves are patur. The avadim are not meshuchrarim, the slaves that are not yet freed. Chiger, a person that's lame. Suma, a blind individual. Vehachole, a sick person. Zaken, an elderly individuul. Umi she'eno yachol la'alot b'raglav, someone that cannot go up with his feet to Har HaBayit. And that enumerates 12 different exceptions to the rule. Great. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Ezehu katan. What is considered a katan? Kol she'lo yachol lirkov al ketefav shel aviv. Any person that is young enough that can't go on the shoulders of his father in order to be taken to Har HaBayit, to be taken to Yerushalayim. Now, we're not talking about the case that you put your kid on your shoulder and you hold their hand, because that you could do with a one-day-old pretty much as well. Talk about the case that the kid sees the shoulders of the father and he just opens his legs to go around the neck and hold on, basically. So it's a little older, but still we're talking about a young, very young kid. Says the Mishnah, that's the Beit Shammai. Says the Shita of Beit Shammai. Ubet Hillel omrim, Bet Hillel holds, Kol she'lo yachol le'echos beyado shel aviv ve'la'alot miYerushalayim leHar HaBayit. We're talking about a kid that cannot hold the hands of the father and go up from Yerushalayim to Har HaBayit walking. Because again, we say Sharosh Regalim. Now, let's make something clear here. A katan that's not bar mitzvah is patur from the mitzvah. That's why we call it bar mitzvah. So in this element of Mishnah, we are not talking about what biblically is obligating. We're not. We're talking about rabbinic obligation. A rabbinic obligation of chinuch, that you have to train your kids to do the mitzvot. And what age that starts? But Shammai says very young. But this is not so young. Still, you have to be able to walk, because it's called Sharosh Regalim. Let's read the source of this in the Mishnah. Says the Bet Hillel that he could walk with his father la'alot miYerushalayim leHar HaBayit, shenemar, as the pasuk says, Sharosh Regalim. That you have to be able to go Sharosh Regalim. The reason that the holidays are called Regalim, it's regal, because you go up with your foot. You go up on your foot together with your father. That's the minimum age. Less than that, you're completely patur. Now, what is the mitzvah of chinuch? Take a quick look at Rashi. When Rashi talks about Ezehu katan, Rashi says the first narrow lines, Aval mikan va'elach, from this age and on, afal pi she'eno hayav min haTorah, even though that he is not obligated from the Torah, hitilu chachamim al aviv ve'al imo lechanecho b'mitzvot. Chachamim made an obligation on his father and on his mother to train him in mitzvot. Now, this is a very significant Rashi, even though that it doesn't seem like one, because there's a massive machloket rishonim. Who is chayav in chinuch? Is it only the father that has the mitzvah of chinuch, or is it even the mother that has the mitzvah of chinuch? And it's not a simple fact. Rashi over here is telling us that it's not just the mitzvah of the father, but it is the mitzvah of the mother as well. Now, Shulchan Aruch does not seem to say this in the same way. Shulchan Aruch in Hilchot Shabbat, in Siman Shin Mem Gimel, he says that the mitzvah of chinuch is on the father. There, the topic of the Shulchan Aruch is, if you have a katan ochel nevelot, you have a minor that is eating non-kosher stuff. So says the Shulchan Aruch, the bedin is not obligated to take him away and to make sure he's not eating. Right? The rabbi could zip his mouth and not say anything. But the father is chayav, says the Shulchan Aruch, because the father has an obligation of chinuch, which seems to indicate that it's only the father, not the mother. But nevertheless, this Rashi over here in the very beginning of Masechet Chagigah has words of significance. He's one of the Rishonim on the camp that seems to hold that chiyuv, the obligation of chinuch, is not just the father, but it's the mother as well. So says the Mishnah, let's finish up the Mishnah. Bet Shammai omrim, hareiyah shte kesef v'achagigah ma'a kesef. Bet Shammai hold that the two korbanot that we spoke about in the beginning, the korban olat hareiyah and shalmei chagigah, which one has to be more expensive? Well, what's the price? We only could tell you what's the minimum price. The maximum price, you could go buy the most expensive one, right? A Rolls Royce of animals. But the minimum price that you have to spend on it, says the Mishnah, according to Bet Shammai, the Korban Ha'olah has to be more expensive. It has to be Shtei Kesef. And Chagigah is Ma'a Kesef. It's only one Ma'a Kesef, not two. Bet Hillel disagrees. But Hillel says, no. The Chagigah is the one that you're going to be eating with your family. You need it to be bigger animal. So therefore, the Olah will be minimum one Ma'ah, and the Chagigah will be two Ma'ot. Says the Bet Hillel, Hareiyah Ma'a Kesef, V'Chagigah Shtei Kesef. So that's our Mishnah. Now, says the Gemara, whenever you have Hakol Chayavim, everybody is obligated, you're adding something, right? Whenever you say that language, you are hinting to an item that's not mentioned specifically, but you're hinting that there's more than what I'm telling you in the number of cases. There is a case that you would have thought should be patur, but I am telling you is chayav. So Gemara asks the obvious question, hakol la tuyemai. When you say the word hakol, what is that word coming to add to the numbers of cases that we would have thought? Says the Gemara, Hakol la tuyemai is coming to add what? La tuye mi shechetzio eved vechesio ben chorin is coming to add a case of somebody that is not an eved and it's not a free man. It's a half-half. How do you have such a case? Reuben and Shimon go to the marketplace together. They buy an eved together. Chatzi, right? Shutfut, they are partners in this eved. Right? They come and after a while, Reuben sees that this guy is an amazing guy. Says, Chaval, this person should be an eved. Chaval, I'm freeing this eved. When you free an eved Kanani, it will become a Jew. Right? It's a whole process. The eved is chayav to more than half of the mitzvot. Any mitzvah that a woman is chayav, an eved also is chayav. Eved gets a brit milah, eved goes to mikveh. It has most of the processes of a ger tzedek. And the last one would be when you give them the ownership over themselves, they'll become a full yid. But this person is very complicated because he had two people who owned him. One of them decided, enough is enough, I'm letting this guy go. And the other one says, nope, I'm holding on. So what's the halacha? It's chetzi evet, chetzi ben chorin. We're going to get back to this in just a moment. Says the Gemara, you would have thought that he should be patur because, well, he's not a ben chorin, right? He's not a fully free individual, so maybe he should be patur. So the Gemara wants to suggest here that you would have thought he should be patur is chayav. That's the case that the Mishnah with the word hakol is coming to add. The Gemara is going to challenge this, offer another shot, challenge that, offer a third shot, challenge that as well, and it's going to come back eventually to this shot again. So just hold cup and focus. This is what's going to be the structure of the next 10 lines of the Gemara, and we're going to come back to this original solution that we have of a person that's half evet, half ben chorin. Patur means a person that is absolved, is not obligated, and chayav is obligation. So says the Gemara, Ul Ravina de Amar, later on in Daf Dalet in the Gemara, we're going to have a shita of Ravina. Ravina holds, Misha chetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin patur min hareiyah. He holds clearly that a person that's not a fully free individual is not obligated to go up to Yerushalayim. He's patur. So says the Gemara, according to him, this cannot be the addition, because he holds this very case is patur, is not obligated. So according to him, when the Mishnah says hakol chayavin, what is the Mishnah coming to add? Hakol la tuyemai, what is it adding? La tuyeh chiger beyom rishon. It's coming to add a person that can't walk on the first day of the Chag. He is lame, he can't walk, he hurt his foot. V'nitpashet beyom sheni. And the second day he's already feeling good, he could go up. So first day he could not have walked, but now the second day of the Chag, he could walk. So you would have thought that this person, well, in the beginning, when the chiyuv came upon everybody, this person was patur. So therefore, he should stay absolved from the mitzvah of aliyah regel, and the hakol is coming to tell you that he's chayav. That sounds very good, right? I would have fallen for that just in 1 second. But the Gemara says, well, that's not so simple, because nothing is simple. But the reason is there is a machloket later on in the Gemara, a big machloket Amoraim. What is the nature of the obligation of bringing korban chagigah of reiyah and also going up to the regel? What is the nature of it? Is it because we're going to see later on that there is a concept of tashlumin? What does it mean tashlumin? You could make up. You could make it up. If you didn't bring the first day, you bring the second day. You didn't bring second day, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. You could be mashlim, tashlumin, until the end of the Chag. So what is the mechanism of the mitzvah of tashlumin? How does it work, the mitzvah of tashlumin? It's a machloket amoraim. Is it that the first day you're obligated to do it, and if you didn't do it the first day, then you could make up for the first day? You could make it up the second day. You could make it up, which means you could make up for the first day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day. But all of them are making up for the first day. And therefore, if you on the first day were patur, you never even had the chiyuv, the obligation. You're completely off the hook. If the first day, for whatever reason, you were patur throughout the whole Chag. Or maybe it's not like that. Maybe every single day has its own chiyuv. The Chag has a chiyuv of riyah, and you have to do it. Now, you could do it the first day. If you didn't do it, you could make up the chiyuv on the second day. You know why? Because second day also is obligation. One time during the 7 days, you have to do it. If you didn't do it so according to this understanding, if the first day you were patur, but the second day then you feel good, your foot is fine, you're patur or chayav. Of course you're chayav. That's a massive machloket that we're going to study in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, wait a second. A person that was a chiger that couldn't walk the first day, and the second day he's good, that can't be the case that the Mishnah is adding, because that would be subject to that machloket of Amoraim. According to those who understand that chiyuv is every day, of course you're going to be chayav. What's the chidush? Of course you're going to be chayav. That's what the Gemara is going to say. Says the Gemara, this is good for those who hold kulan tashlumin zelazeh, that each one of them is a tashlumin of one another. But those who hold that every single day that you could bring the korban, if you didn't bring it the first day, is because it's the tashlumin for the first day. That clearly would indicate that if first day you were patur, you were completely absolved, you will be patur from any tashlumin. So that can't be the case that the Mishnah is adding, because you will be patur according to that man da'amar. Says the Gemara, so we're stuck back to our First question, when the Mishnah says the big word that you see on top of the Masechta, Hakol, what is that adding? So the third try of the Gemara is, you know what it's adding? It's adding a person that's blind but not really blind. He's blind in one eye. He sees in the other eye. So is he chayav or patur? You would have thought maybe he should be patur. The Mishnah is coming to add hakol chayavin, that he is also chayav. The Gemara says, wait a second, not too fast, because that also is not simple. Says the Gemara, udeloki aitana. This is not like the Tana that we learned in the Braita. Yochanan ben Dahavai Omer. Yochanan ben Dahavai would say, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Suma bachad me'enav patur min hareiyah. A suma bachad me'enav, a blind man in one eye, is patur from going up to Yerushalayim. Now, some backdrop. Rabbi Yehuda is the one, parenthetically, that holds throughout Shas that a suma is patur min ha-mitzvot. There's a machloket in Gemara in numerous places across Shas, whether or not a blind man is obligated to do the mitzvot or not obligated to do the mitzvot, right? We had this before with Rabbi Yosef, that Rabbi Yosef was blind. He was a self-inflicted blind man. And he used to say, in the beginning, if somebody told me that a suma, a blind man is patur from mitzvot, I would make a seudah, I would make a yom tov, I would make a party, because I thought to myself, I am patur from mitzvot, and I'm still doing them. What a tzaddik I am. But then he said, I heard, gadola metzuveh v'oseh, yoter mivisheno metzuveh v'oseh. A person that's obligated and does the mitzvot is a greater level of mitzvah than someone that's not obligated and doesn't. Then I said, oh, no. Whoever says a suma is chayav mitzvot, that a blind man is obligated to the mitzvah, then I will make a seudah. So you see that machloket across Shas, Rabbi Yehuda is the one that holds a blind man from two eyes, Nachman Litzlan, patur from the mitzvot. But the same Rabbi Yehuda says, a person that is not blind in two eyes, is blind only in one eye, is chayav to do all the mitzvot. But yet, Rabbi Yehuda holds that even though that you're chayav to do the mitzvot, you're obligated to do the rest of the mitzvot. From the mitzvah of aliyah regel, you're patur. You're absolved from going up to Yerushalayim 3 times a year if you're blind in one eye. Why? Says the Gemara. Suma b'achad me'enav patur min hareiyah. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Yera'eh yir'eh. In other words, the pasuk that says, Shalosh pa'amim b'shana, 3 times a year, Yera'eh kol zechurcha et penei ha'adon Hashem. Every male of Jewish nation should go up and be seen in front of Hashem. Yera'eh means to be seen, but it could be read, Yir'eh. So we darshan, we explain it both ways. We say, you know why? The choice of word in the Torah is Yera'eh. That could be read also, Yir'eh means he will see, Yera'eh means he will be seen. And both of them together is teaching us a halacha, says Rabbi Yehuda. Kederech sheba lira'ot, kach ba lir'ot. The same way that he's seen by Hashem, so to speak, in a full sight. Hashem is not chas v'shalom blind. The sight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a full sight. The same way, his sight when he's coming to the scene of Yerushalayim also has to be a full sight. It can't be a half sight from one eye only. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds. So this is also not great according to Rabbi Yehuda. So we're still stuck. Just like lir'ot is with 2 eyes, both lir'ot also has to be with 2 eyes. So therefore, we are still not fully reconciled. We tried 3 different things. We first said, we're talking about Chatzi Evet, Chatzi Ben Chorin, a person that's half Evet, half Ben Chorin. Then we said, well, that doesn't work really according to Ravina. And we said, let's try someone else that is, lame, can't walk the first day, afterwards he could walk. We said that that's also not so simple. We tried this individual that is suma be'achad me'enav, that he's blind in one eye, that also is not going to work according to Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, I could tell you that the very first thing we tried is going to work. What's the very first thing that we tried? What I told you in the very beginning is the main answer. What did we say in the beginning? A person that has two adons, two masters, two owners, and one of them freed this Evet, the other one didn't free him. So says the Gemara, and the fact that you had a kasha from Ravina, that Ravina holds that Chatzi Evet, Chatzi Ben Chorin is later on in Gemara in Daf Dalet, Ravina's shita is that he will be patur, so he's not chayav. Says Gemara, lo kasha. Kan kemishnah rishona, kan kemishnah achrona. There were two times in the timeline of history, the shita of Bet Hillel that we paskin like has changed regarding this very individual who had two masters, one of which freed him and the other one didn't. Let's learn the history of this very, very, very briefly. Says the Gemara, Ditnan, as we learned, Misha Chetzio Evet v'Chetzio Ben Chorin, an Evet that had two masters, two owners, and one of them freed him, Ovedet Rabo Yom Echad, ve'et atzmo Yom Echad. But Hillel said, I have a fantastic solution. You take one day off and you work one day. You take one day off, right? Because he owns himself and the master owns him. So we'll divide the days. One day you work, one day you take off. One day you work, one day you take off. Amazing. But Shammai said, wait a second. You reconcile the financial aspect of this, but there is much more to a person than just the financial aspect. Says Bet Shammai, this is one of the only places that Bet Shammai's shita is brought after Bet Hillel, because they are arguing with Bet Hillel, and Bet Hillel actually agreed with them and changed their mind. So says the Gemara, Divrei Bet Hillel. After Bet Shammai told him, wait a second, Takantem et rabo v'atzmo lo takantem. You fixed his financial obligations to his Rabbi, to his master, to his owner, but he himself is not fixed. Because what is he going to do? Who is he going to marry as a man? He's a half Ben Chorin, so he can't marry a shifcha, a maidservant, and he can't marry a regular Jewish girl. So what is he going to do? Libatel, and you'll say, well, he shouldn't get married. The purpose of creation was the world was created for Priya v'Rivya Lashevet Yetzara. So Bet Shammai are going to suggest that we force the master, the one that's remaining, to free him, and then he will be a completely free man, and he will go and get married to a regular Beis Yaakov girl, and that was it. So that's the shita of Bet Hillel after the Bet Shammai corrected them. So the Gemara now suggests basically that the two of them are talking about the before and after in the timeline. The one that says, the Ravina, that Chatzi Ben Chorin, Chatzi Evet will be Patur, versus our Mishnah that says Hakol Chayavin, that even a Chatzi Evet, Chatzi Ben Chorin is obligated, is before and after this Bet Hillel changed their shita. After Bet Hillel agreed with Bet Shammai, of course, this person is going to be chayav because we force his adon, his master, to free him, and then he will be like a regular person. We're going to come back to this Bezrat Hashem tomorrow with a fascinating story from one of the Hasidic rabbis, which is really uplifting and hashkafically very insightful. Bezrat Hashem, to be continued in the days to come. Have a wonderful day.